Hello, I'm an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anybody, I just like knives, and I have a collection of small folding pocket knives, and you've been joining me on a tour through that collection for the last year or so. Thanks for the company. Today we're going to look at this one. This is another knife from Terrain 365, their Cayman. Cayman? I don't know. Cayman, I think. Where'd this come from? Well, I have another one of their knives. Do I have it here somewhere? Yeah, I have this knife. I reviewed this a while ago. You will have seen it. This is their first folder, I think, the Terrain 365 Otter. These knives have a unique property in that they're non-rusting because of special materials. I like that. I liked that concept. I didn't actually like this knife very much. I didn't particularly like the blade shape. I thought it was kind of funny looking, and I really didn't like this 1950s wire bail thing on the end. I mean, who the hell thought that was a good idea? So although I liked the concept, I wasn't really fond of this knife. Well, they've come out with several more. So this one, the Cayman, is very similar. It's a traditional slip joint made with the same interesting and exotic materials, but it uses a more normal blade shape, a clip point, and it loses the ugly bail. And so I think now they've got something here. So let's go through this a little more in a little more detail. The company is Terrain 365, and this is the Cayman. Maybe it's Cayman. I'm going to assume that it's Cayman model of their slip joint. And that comes in a few versions. This is the carbon fiber scales. You can also get a couple of colors of micarta. It is a traditional slip joint mechanism, and that real slip joint, you see there's a back spring here that operates. There we are. Back spring operates. Oh, sorry, it's on this end, isn't it? Back spring operates when moving the knife. It's got a good firm half stop and a good firm open, but it is a non-locking knife, so in places where non-locking is important, then this knife should be okay. There is a nail nick, and it's nail nick opening. I will say the nail nick is not especially deep, and it is possible to open the knife just by grabbing the meat of the blade in the meat of your fingers. So anyway, traditional slip joint. We better get to the blade right away before we talk about size, because this is kind of their thing. This blade is not steel. It is made from material that they call Terravantium. Honestly, I could do without the silly marketing hype-ish name, but in any case, Terravantium, which is a dendritic cobalt. And what that means is it is some kind of a structure that combines cobalt and carbon. And most importantly, no iron. It is completely non-ferrous, and because there's no iron in it, it can't rust. Different than some knives like the quiet carries, which I love, that are alloys of steel that are very corrosion resistant. This simply cannot rust. The chemical reaction just isn't there. And so that's really cool. And it seems to hold an edge quite well. It seems to take a good edge. I have not sharpened either of my Terrain 365 knives yet, so I can't comment on how well it will sharpen, but it does seem to hold an edge quite well. A fairly tough material. But the gimmick is it can't rust. That's really cool. Now let's come back and talk about the size. This is a mid-sized slip joint. It's 176 millimeters long, which makes it 0.95 pocket calculators, the international standard for knife length. Comparing it to some other things, on paper it is the same size as the Otter. Now if you don't look at that stupid bail, I don't know, to me it looks longer. It looks to be a millimeter or two longer. Maybe that's just an optical illusion caused by the pointiness of the blade, I don't know. So anyway, it's in that size range. It's about the same size, plus or minus like a millimeter or two, but the same size as a small Sebenza. Slightly larger than most of my other slip joints. For example, here's a Benchmade proper. Slightly larger than the Benchmade proper. Oh, and my standard comparison for knives, mini griptilian. My standard is the pocket calculator. My other standard, mini griptilian, again, a few millimeters larger than the mini Griptilian. So comfortably in the mid-sized range. The weight, it's 88 grams, which is slightly heavier than the Otter, and a little heavier than several of my other knives. I don't have anything else that is exactly the same weight, but it is within a couple of grams of the Quiet Carry Drift. So mid-size, mid-weight. It's not a featherweight. Mid-size, mid-weight knife. The body is titanium innards with, on this model, carbon fiber scales. And as I said, there are micarta versions available. The blade is this magical stuff, Terravantium. The rest of the hardware is stainless steel, and I do not know what kind of stainless steel. So one hopes that it is a highly corrosion-resistant stainless steel to match the non-rusting blade. There is no clip. There is a lanyard pin, so you could put a lanyard through there if that was important to you. I have some left-handed friends. How about ambidextrositude? I'm going to say yes, 100%. Maybe 99.99%. It is fully ambidextrous for opening. Nail nick on both sides. Being a slip joint, there is no locking mechanism, so it is fully ambidextrous for closing. The presentation side is almost identical on both sides. The difference, and the reason I said 99.99999%, is that there are the Torex holes on this side and not on this side. So you can tell which side you're looking at, but it is identical. So yes, a very ambidextrous knife. It is manufactured in the US, for those of you who care. I don't know where. The company is in California, their business address, but I don't know if that's where the factory is. But anyway, they say US made, and I believe them. So, nice little knife. Let's go through some likes and dislikes. What I like, well, first of all, I like the concept, this dendritic cobalt, the so-called Terravantium. I like the idea of non-ferrous metals for blades. I like that someone is experimenting with that, and this one seems to have been done quite well. I do have some uses in my life that corrode knives, and the idea that I can have a non-rusting slip joint in my pocket for certain types of uses really appeals to me. The other thing I like is it gets the looks right. This is the traditional slip joint, clip point slip joint. It looks like I expect a slip joint knife to look. It looks like my old jackknife. It looks like my father's old jackknife. And it loses that hideous bail that the Otter had on the end, which reminded me of my first ultra-cheap Boy Scout knife and just spoiled the lines. This doesn't do that, and the scales are quite attractive, so I do like the appearance. I also like the action a lot. Yeah, there's no tuning here. I haven't adjusted tensions or anything, and it's good tension, just enough. Not trivially easy to open or close, but not a struggle. Locks well. The blade is perfectly centered. So just, well done. And finally, it's a great knife to cut with. The size is perfect. Just fits 4 fingers. There are no hot spots. There's no clip. So there's nothing to irritate the hand. So it just holds very comfortably in the hand. There's a little bit of jimping right there under the thumb. Just falls into the perfect spot. There, I'm trying to get an angle right. There's a tiny sharpening choil. So you can, in theory, sharpen to the edge of the live edge of the blade without hitting that shoulder. The shoulder's awfully close, but anyway, there is a small choil, and that's good. I appreciate that. A couple of dislikes. Well, just mentioned one. I'd like that sharpening choil to be a little larger. And I have to really be careful not to abrade the shoulder when sharpening. Now, on the other hand, I don't know how often I'm going to have to sharpen it. I don't know enough about this material. The scale screws, the fit and finish of the screws could be slightly better. They're sitting in recessed bores, which is good. You'd want that. The bores are a little larger than they need to be. There's a bit of airspace around the screws there and there. And there's a little bit of an edge there on the pivot screw. Just, the fit and finish of how these screws fit into the scales could be a little better. It's by no means a problem, but this is not a cheap knife, and that could be just a little better. The other complaint I'll have is that this is an in-pocket knife. There's no clip, so this is going to be in your pocket with your collection of jagged rocks from the beach and your car keys and other things. And it's a fairly exotic scale material. I'd be worried about it scratching. Generally, if I have an in-pocket knife with exotic scale materials, I like it to be in a leather slip. This doesn't come with one. So I do put it in one. This is a Chris Reeve slip. I keep several of these. That's how it generally goes in my pocket. And again, I think a knife that is designed for in-pocket use and is not a cheap knife and has fancy scale material should come with a leather slip. The micarta covered ones, probably not a problem. That's intended to wear and patina, but this isn't. So I would have liked that slip. That's a minor dislike. And hey, it would raise the price, I suppose, but I would have paid $10 more to have this come with a slip. Instead, I'm putting it in a $10 Chris Reeve slip. So they missed an opportunity to have their own logo in my pocket instead of Chris Reeve's. That's not much on the don't like list. I really do like this knife. Let's reflect that in my internationally unknown knife rating system. We'll start with NTGK for non-threatening gentleman's knife. We'll look at non-threatening first. For non-threatening, it's all good. The opening is non-threatening. You can only open it two-handed, and you can only open it slow. This one, I'm comfortable saying that. I usually add some remark like, I'm sure somebody can do it. Well, not this time. I challenge somebody to show me opening this knife with one hand or quickly and not losing fingers. So this can only be opened in a non-threatening way. And I think that's good. I think clip point slip joints are just inherently non-threatening in appearance because they're traditional looking. People look at that knife, and except for the carbon fiber, which they may never have seen before, they look at that knife and they say, my grandpa had a jackknife like that. And it invokes nostalgia, not fear of weapons. And it has no silly tactical decorations on it. So there's nothing about it is designed to look scary or weapony. The bad on non-threatening, I honestly can't think of anything. I'd give it an A+ if that was all I was rating. As a gentleman's knife, good and bad here. The good is, well, first of all, the carbon fiber. That's an exotic material, and it's the woven style of carbon fiber, which gives a really beautiful three-dimensional appearance from the refraction of the weaving, so I think that's very attractive. The exotic metal is a conversation piece. And the subtle markings are, well, the markings are subtle. There's Terravantium on that side and Terravantium on this side, but it is dark gray lettering on a light gray blade. It doesn't jump out at you looking like an advertising slogan, so I think it's nice and subtle. Bad for a gentleman's knife, it is a little bit chunky. It's a little bit thick. And you'll notice it actually tapers thicker this way, and the result is that it's just a little chunky, a little larger than a tiny gentleman's jewelry type knife should be. And it's not very pocket friendly. As I said, it's not a light knife, it's not a tiny knife, and it doesn't come with a slip. So it's not ideal in the pocket, but it's pretty damn nice. I'll give it an A, but not an A+ as a gentleman's knife, but I'm still going to give it an A+ overall as an NTGK. I do really think it hits the mark quite nicely. How about the KN rating, which is what my knife nerd friends will think? Well, I think they'll like it quite a lot. The novelty, sorry, I don't mean that. That sounds like a disparaging. The novel, there we are. The innovative, that's what I wanted. The innovative blade material is a real conversation piece among knife nerds. I mean, that is really cool. And the slip joint quality is just really well done. Really nice action, nice mechanics, nice centering, nice blade, comfortable. My knife nerd friends will really like this thing, except that just, some knife nerds just don't like slip joints, but I don't care about that. There were cons with the Otter, and those are all fixed here. So I'm going to give this thing an A+ as a knife nerd rating. And finally, as a CMR, cut myself rating, again, I'll give it an A+. Usually I just say A if I haven't cut myself yet, but again, A+ because this being a well-done well-tensioned slip joint. It just feels safe. So I'm probably not going to cut myself on it unless I drop it on my foot. Which I've done, by the way, with another knife, but that's another story. So in summary, I liked the Otter in concept. I liked it for the interesting material, but I didn't like the actual knife very much. This fixes that. This is a really nicely done traditional slip joint, done sort of with modern engineering and high-end materials, plus that really extra novel, innovative thing that it's non-ferrous and can't rust. So this will be the slip joint that goes in my pocket, either when I'm going to be talking to knife nerds and want to show off the cool material, or when I do expect to get wet, splashed with salt spray, things like that. Definitely one of the favorites in my collection. Well done, Terrain 365. I'm really pleased with this little guy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.